Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started now. This is Kate Alder with Irvine Valley College, and I'll be lending the tech support today. So when you have questions, you'll be typing them in the question box, and let's just take a look at what that looks like. I saw a question just came in, says, since today is our last session, how long will we be able to archive the sessions? The sessions are going to be posted on the Career Briefs website on the Career Development Advisory area, and we'll be showing you that at the end of the session where you can access all of the information from the session. So if you take a look right now, you can see on the screen some information for tips for attendees to make sure that you are muted. And if you're using a telephone, use *6 to mute. If you're using a headset, then you're going to mute your microphone. And if you look at the control panel that I'm showing you right now, you can take a look right there, and where the microphone area is right here, you want to make sure you have a red slash through there. That means your microphone is muted. Down here in this area is where the questions are. Right here where it says, you can just click in where it says yes right now, and you'd be able to type in your question. If you have a technical question, I will answer just directly to you. If you ask a question that's of interest to everyone or a tech problem that's happening for everyone, I'll reply to all. If you have a question for Kate Brooks, then I'll just be monitoring the questions, and at the end of Kate's presentation, I'll go ahead and ask her all the questions, and she'll be answering those for you. So if you have questions during the session, please just put them in that question box, and we'll get them answered for you at the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over now to our co-presenter, Rita Jones. So hang on one moment, and we'll switch over to Rita, and she can help you out. Rita, here you go.
Okay, thanks. All right, welcome back, everyone, to our fourth and final webinar in this series on visual techniques. This is Rita Jones, your facilitator, and I want to thank all of you for your persistence, because I have a feeling that if you're on the call today, this is not your first time. Susan is not able to join us today, so I would like to recognize our SB 70 funding that allows us to offer this professional development at no cost to you. Irvine Valley College is the host for this grant, which is work-based linkages to professional associations. Now, you've probably heard by now that this grant also is funding a partnership with Road Trip Nation, and we will be on a California road trip with them this spring. We're going to be going to 10 different regional locations throughout the state, so keep your eyes open for a notice about a workshop that will be coming to a location close to you. Now, you all know Kate by now, but just in case we have some newcomers on the call, know that you are in good hands. Kate is a career coach and a counselor who has been in the field of career advising for over 20 years. She holds a master's degree in vocational rehabilitation and a doctorate in educational psychology from West Virginia University. She has authored a career book, You've Majored in What?, for college students, which uses a variety of visual thinking techniques to help students make important career decisions. And in this series, Dr. Brooks has been teaching us the value of visual techniques and helping us develop our own techniques when we're working with the many types of students that we encounter. So with that, we're all looking forward to this final session with Kate. I'm going to turn it over to her. Oops.
All right, thank you, Rita. And I guess everybody gets the gold star now for attending all these times, and I'm really excited about this series. It's been fun to do, and I hope it's been helpful for you. And so today we're kind of doing everything but the kitchen sink at this point. It's hexagrams and diamonds and other stuff. So with that in mind, let me just start here with the first slide, and I've got to get my computer to wake up. There we go. Okay, so just quickly to review for anybody who's here for the first time, the goals of this webinar were and are to introduce visual techniques for different career issues so that you can use them when you're advising students. Also, to encourage you to be creative and think of more ways that you could use these ideas and develop even more ideas when helping to solve problems or come up with new ways to approach a situation or whatever with your students. And also, it's a very action-oriented approach, and I really like that. It helps your clients take a more active role instead of just sitting there listening to you. And so in terms of just the advantages of using visual thinking techniques, you all have heard this quote if you've been here for a while, it's easier to organize your thoughts if you can see them. And that's what we're really doing. We're helping our students see their thoughts. And so it helps them organize and clarify what they're thinking, gets rid of the jumble in the head, takes that complexity and just makes it a lot more simple. They can start to see relationships more easily. And what I like most about visual thinking is that it's very easy to do and it's very inexpensive. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen. And then the students have something to take away at the end of their session with you. So for all of those reasons, I think visual thinking exercises are just a lot of fun. So the first shape, we've done squares and rectangles, we've done circles, we've done all kinds of shapes. And we talked about this shape a little bit last week in terms of a circle. We had a pie diagram where we divided the pie. But for those of you who know Richard Bowles and his book, What Color's Your Parachute, you probably are very familiar with a classic hexagram, which is the party scene, as he describes it. And he has it divided up for you to decide if you went to a party, which corner of the room would you go to, or which part of the party. And he uses a hexagram. And I thought I would just start with that example because it's one that I think everybody's familiar with and has seen so many times. But hexagrams are actually a really interesting shape that I don't think many of us use very much. And if you Google it, you'll learn that there's actually a field called hexagon modeling. And hexagons, or hexagrams, they're called both, but hexagons basically are a shape that lend themselves to, as you can see from this diagram, they lend themselves to blending with each other and matching, and they have 6 different sides that you can match. So there's all kinds of shapes and orders that you can do with this. And so one method involves simply writing an idea on each of these little hexagons and then moving them around, repositioning them as you want. And it's a way of taking a lot of information that can be overwhelming and finding ways to structure it. So you can actually use this in meetings or in workshops. You put a bunch of hexagons up, and you can either cut paper to fit this shape, or you can use these. These come again from Microsoft Word Art, which is where I've taken everything. You can also actually buy these shapes. And by the way, I wanted to mention one of the best places to go, and I should have looked them up in California. I know we have them here in Austin, what are called teacher supply stores. They might have different names depending on who owns them. I think we have one here in town called Teacher Heaven. But they're supply stores that just provide all those classroom things for generally for elementary and secondary schools. But I recommend you go to those stores and look around because they have lots of ideas for visual thinking. And you'll want to be careful and not pick things that are too elementary for your students, but they can be great for purchasing things like these shapes. The hexagon shapes are very easy to find at those kinds of stores because they use them a lot in science and engineering, so it's a shape that shows up. Anyway, it's a way of taking a shape and putting an idea on each shape, and then what's neat is you can see to the right there, you can put them in all kinds of patterns or orders. So if you're at a meeting and you're trying to decide about maybe a workshop you want to run, this is a great way to just put all the ideas down and then start putting them in order. And here's an example, just using the typical career things. These might be 4 steps that we would talk about with students: their cover letter, their resume, their research, and the information interview. And then as you can see on the right, I've started to put them in a shape. And you could add more steps to it and actually complete that shape so that it sort of looked like a circle or whatever. But the idea is you have all these ideas that are kind of out there, and then the hexagon model lets you organize and put them in whatever order, and the order may vary depending on the student. With some students you might start with the research, the way I have it there at the right, and then move into the information interview. But there might be other students that you'd say, no, you need to start with the resume first, depending on your situation. So it's just a nice diagram, a nice way of organizing things. So here's another example of using it. Now this one is, and I just realized I'm left-handed, so I tend to work right to left, and so those of you who are right-handed may want to do it the other way. But if there's any lefties in the crowd, you'll understand why I did this. You can show, in this case, this shows diverging paths. So let's say you've got a student where they've got two possible things they could do. You know, they're starting with now, and on the right there in that little purple one, and they move through several steps, and then at some point they're going to be placed in a choice situation. Maybe they're choosing between whether to go on and take 4 years of school or whether to go right into the career. And so what you could do with the hexagon modeling, again, is you could just add some steps in there and sort of show them, well, if you go this path, here's where the outcome will be. And if you go this path, here's the other outcome. And so it's again, a nice way to just come up with some different ideas, different ways that they can look at something. I also think, you know, there's ways to do just brainstorming as you go through this, and you can remove. The nice thing is these hexagons can be put in and removed and everything, so you can put steps in, take steps out. It's just a nice way of looking at it. Once again, you could simply talk to the student about these are your choices and here are the options, but being able to model it like this can be a really nice way to do it. There are actually programs that you can get online that are free. They're open source programs that will create these hexagons for you, because as I mentioned, this is used a lot in engineering and other fields. So hexagon modeling is actually a business technique that you'll see in various places. I just really think it's an interesting way to start helping people formulate plans. You can end up with some really interesting career paths. And I'm just thinking of all the different shapes you could make with this, because you could make these into circles. You could do kind of a spiral effect if you wanted to have it spiraling in or spiraling back out again. Just lots of fun you could have playing with different ways of doing that. So that's a little bit about hexagon modeling. And as I said, you can go online and Google that, and you will see lots of information about it. Now, another shape that I really like, and I think I taught this one in the fall when I was out in California, so this might be a repeat for some of you, but I think it bears repeating, and that's this career diamond. Again, there's nothing really special necessarily about the diamond shape, except I just like the way it sorts things. And basically, as you can see, I've got what, who, where, and why in each section of the diamond. And this is an exercise, in fact, I just used it the other day in one of my classes, where I was asking them to consider their ideal job. What would they like to be doing? And this was for a group of folks who are undecided, don't have a career path in mind. And so we start with the what, and that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's, you know, what do you see yourself doing? And can you picture yourself? What kind of setting are you in? What activities are you doing? You know, are you at a desk? Are you on a computer? Are you on the phone talking to people? Are you in a classroom? You know, just what activities do you do during the day? And then you move over to the who, and that's, you know, who are your clients or who are your customers? Who are your colleagues? Who do you report to? Who are the people that you're around in a given day? You know, are you in a medical setting? Do you see yourself working around doctors and nurses? Do you see yourself working around equipment? You know, who are the things that surround you? Who are the people? And so it's a way of just starting to think about the kinds of people you want to work with. And you know, you may have people who don't have that strong a vision. They're like, well, I don't know exactly who I want to work with. Well, what age groups do you like to work with? Do you like to work with children? Do you prefer older people? Do you prefer professionals? Do you enjoy working with people who are facing mental or physical challenges? If that's the case, is there a particular kind of challenge? You know, do you find it interesting to work with people who are overcoming a particular disability? Or anyway, so just sort of getting them to drill down on who do they like to be around during a given day. And as you notice, what this is doing is getting them to think about the characteristics of what they might want to do without the paralysis of, oh, I don't know what job this would be. You know, we're not trying to say what's the exact job or what's the exact career. But on the other hand, it's like, what are your activities? Who are you with? And that's going to help the career evolve from there. The where is anything from where do you see yourself in the country or in the world? You know, do you see yourself working in another country? Do you see yourself working in California? is it as specific as Los Angeles or San Francisco, or do you see yourself flexible anywhere? You know, the idea where in the world, where in the country, but then also where in terms of indoors, outdoors, is there a specific setting? Do you see yourself working at a college or working at a hospital, working in whatever? You know, what kind of setting do you see yourself in? A business setting, a school setting, and so on. So lots of ways that where question can go. And then the question I really like is the one at the bottom, and I don't do that one till the end. I sort of get them to flesh out the what, who, and where. And by the way, you can always put this diamond up on a board if you're doing this as a workshop, and get students to give you some answers. You know, talk to them and say, does anybody want to tell me what they put down for their where? Because by talking and giving their ideas, they, of course, then give other students ideas. And so some of your students who tend to be a little stuck, sometimes listening to what their classmates say or what the folks in the workshop say will give them some ideas, and they'll start writing them down. And so finally, once you've explored these what, who, and where, the last one I always go to is the why. And that's about, you know, the meaning and the value behind the work. Why are you doing this? What is your purpose? What is the motivation? What makes you want to do this? And that's, you know, the kind of question that's going to open up all sorts of ideas from the students. And some of them will say because of the money. And that's an okay answer. And what I usually say to them is, you know, I get it that you want to make some money, but you know what I've learned is that most people don't really like to collect pictures, green pictures of George Washington or whatever. You know, most people actually like to do something with that money. When you get all this money from this career, how will you use the money? And then see where they go from there. So it might be to buy themselves things. It might be to pay back their family for things their family's done for them. You know, so what you're trying to do is really get at the meaning behind the meaning, so to speak. It gets them away from that. I try to get them on more of what I would call a prosperity mindset rather than just a money mindset. The idea that prosperity comes in a lot of different ways. Abundance can be viewed many different ways. We all arguably have abundant lives regardless of how much money's in our bank account. So sometimes that's a nice way into that discussion. But so the why just sort of gets at what is my motivator, what is going to keep me on this path. And it also may give you some clues as the quote-unquote career expert to help them come up with some ideas. Because one of the tricks now is you sort of look at this diamond in whole and you say, okay, now what jobs fit this? And there may not be jobs that fit perfectly and take every single one of their ideas. I've had students just totally fill up the what, where, and who. And there's no one job that would ever fit all of that. So then what I do is I have them mark for me the ones that they are most adamant about. You know, what are the things that who are the people you most want to work with? What are the things you most want to be doing? What are the, you know, where are the places you most want to live? And then that allows us to start narrowing it down again. So that that career diamond, and by the way, if you have somebody who's totally stuck and says, I just don't know what I want, I just don't know, and you know, that happens sometimes, I usually say, well, then let's do the career from hell. So let's talk about the job you absolutely don't want. Who would you hate working with? What would be your nightmare job? You know, and they might say, well, it'd be working at a preschool where it was all little children running around. Or they might say, you know, it's working in a cubicle with a, you know, something right out of Office Space or something. So sometimes the career from hell can give you, you know, you can start working off that and saying, okay, so you don't want this, so are you saying you'd prefer this? And then you can, you know, usually can move them from that. So that's sort of the main use I have of a diamond, and I encourage anybody else who has other ideas for a diamond shape that works for you. I hope that you'll come forward with that. And so what I want to move into now is for anybody who was here in session 1 and was very sharp-eyed and eagle-eyed about this whole thing, you may recall that I said that some of the things that you need to do visual thinking was a paper and either a pen or a pencil or some markers, and then I also said sticky tabs. But if you're also equally observant, you probably have noticed I haven't said much about sticky tabs over the past few weeks, and that's because here they are. So these are Post-it notes, sticky tabs, sticky notes. They get called a lot of different things. Post-it note is actually a trademark term, so if you use that, you'll probably want to use the little trademark design. But I really like to use sticky tabs, whatever we call them, in lots and lots of different places. And the first thing is just this idea of it takes us from ideas to order. You can use your little Post-it notes similar to what we were talking about with the hexagons early on, where you put all these ideas down on your little sticky notes, and then you can start to put them in order. I use this a lot at staff meetings when we're brainstorming ideas. I use it as a way of just getting all the information down. Everybody starts writing ideas down on these little sticky notes, and then we start to make sense of them. We start to categorize them, and we put them in some kind of order. And so the idea is we want to get this to-do list out of the head. Remember, the whole point of the visual thinking is get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper so we can start making sense of it. You know, they often talk about open loops in thinking. I don't know if you all have heard that term, but open loops are distractions. It's where I'm at work and I'm sitting at some meeting and I suddenly remember, oh, I forgot to set my DVR and I really want to record this show tonight. Well, that's not really good when I'm sitting at the meeting. That's not a very helpful thought. There's nothing I can do about it right now. And we all have these moments, and I think I've talked in previous weeks about the 3 in the morning kinds of thoughts that hit your head. Well, that's where using the Post-it notes and putting all these thoughts somewhere in one location can help you remember things and take it home. And so, for instance, like with the DVR idea, to be able to take that home. So it removes that kind of open loop thinking. So getting all these to-dos, I don't think that to-do list is all that organized. I think they're still at the stage of getting everything down, but who knows, maybe it is organized. And the other thing to keep in mind with to-do tasks, and this is really important, when we send our students out the door with a to-do task, and maybe we write lists ourselves of these to-do lists, sometimes we'll put something on a to-do list, and the problem is, and one of the reasons we don't get to it, is because there's actually like 4 or 5 different steps that you have to go through before you even get to that task. So for instance, I'm thinking today, I had to stay home this morning because I was waiting for the Geek Squad to show up at my house and fix my television. And it was one of those things. Now, I'm highly motivated. I want my television fixed, so I'm not going to procrastinate very long on that task. But it did require several steps. It wasn't as simple as call the Geek Squad. I had to go online. I had to find out the number of my local Best Buy. I called my local Best Buy. Then I found out, no, you have to call this central number. So I called the central number. Then I end up getting referred to like 2 different people. And then finally, a day later, the technician calls me. I have to call him back. Anyway, it was a very long process to just deal with this one task. So what looks on my to-do list like a simple task actually breaks down into a lot of steps. And that's one of the deceptive things of a to-do list. And that's, again, these are sticky tabs that you're looking at. And I kind of like this idea when we send our students out the door with a list of, okay, you need to research this career field, you need to write a resume, and you set up an interview. Now, in the student's mind, because they don't know much about this, they may be like, oh, I could do that in an afternoon. And we all know that that's not going to happen. So sometimes you're going to need to break down the to-dos into even smaller to-dos. And so, for instance, researching a career field could be, okay, you might want to start by doing an internet search. You might want to locate some professional organizations and find some folks that you might want to information interview with. You might want to talk to professors. Then you might go back to the internet. Anyway, the idea of and I like to do this with sticky tabs and give them the steps because they might want to move them around. Unfortunately, my screen is completely inflexible. But you get the idea of those don't have to come in the order that I've put them. We could move them around. Like you could say to your student, okay, these are some components of researching. Which one do you want to start with? My guess is most will want to start with the internet, so because it's something they're very comfortable with. So you could put that sticky tab at the top, and then you could say, okay, well now one way to get on the internet is why don't you look for a professional organization, and you could talk to them about that. And then again, you could show them different ways they could go about each of these steps. So the idea is that again, I like to use the Post-it notes and to put these ideas down because they're so flexible and movable. and it makes it easy. This is one that I found, this picture I found on the internet, and I have the link for you. It's Mrs. Rojas teaches.blogspot.com, and it's down there on the slide. I purposely didn't change it. I realize you all aren't necessarily teaching literature, but I loved her way of using these sticky notes, and if you look, she's helping the students outline a story. So at the top she has title and author, and then she's got 2 Post-its there to put that information on. Characters, she has setting, she has conflict, important events, resolution, and themes. And see how she has 3 Post-it notes for each of them. That's really clever and very cute, I thought, and much better than anything I could create for you. So I was thinking, you know, if you were doing a resume workshop, instead of doing story map, you could put resume up there, and then you could have like different sections of the resume. You could have job objective, if you use that, or skill section. You could have education section. You could have employment. And particularly if you're trying to teach students to write a targeted resume, you might want to help them move those sticky tabs around. Like maybe a job that normally would come in one location is going to actually move to a different location for a different type of resume. But I thought that was just a really pretty layout, and I wanted to show it to you. And I think it would be a fun one to adapt to a workshop or to anything that you're doing. And these are just, you know, again, these are just ideas to kind of throw out there and let you play around with them. The other week we talked about the possible lives exercise, where it was when we were talking about cluster designs, and I said that, you know, the advantage of possible lives is it gets all those ideas in their head and it gets them out there on a piece of paper, and now they can start to consider which careers they really want. Well, this is actually a step after that. Let's say that you do the possible lives and they come up with 2, 3, 4 lives that they say, I like all of these, I can't choose. Well, once again, Post-it notes are a great way to organize it. I don't make them choose. I would give them a Post-it note for each of their choices, and the one I'm showing you here is, let's say we have a student with 4 choices. And this is kind of truncated to fit the slide because sometimes I have 7 or 8 different Post-it notes underneath each of these, but I made it short just for visual purposes here. But for instance, let's say if they're going towards, I always ask the question, can you do it tomorrow? Most of them can't. So, okay, if you're going towards career choice 1, can you do that tomorrow? Well, no, I got to do a resume. I need to network. I probably should do an information interview. So you just start getting to put all those things down. Okay, let's look at career choice number 2. Okay, for that one, I still need to take a class. It requires an internship, and again, I need to write a resume. And then for career choice 3. Well, that's a whole, like maybe a different field, and I'm going to need to talk to some professors about that, and I'm going to have to take an entrance exam to even get into that. So those are the key things there. And then, you know, career choice 4, whatever. So then what this allows you to do is you can say to the student, okay, you don't have to make a choice yet. One thing you can look at is, you know what, I'm seeing that you need to do a resume for a bunch of these, so maybe a resume would be a good place to start. We could start creating targeted resumes for those fields. And then you might say, well, now what's the next thing you want to do? Do you want to go ahead and start looking toward that internship, or would you rather do something for one of the other ones? I notice you have information interviewing for a couple of them. What about setting up some information interviews, maybe one for each of these fields? So the idea is once again, the clutter in the brain now gets all put down on a piece of paper with these little Post-it notes that they can move around. And when they complete one, they can tear it off. They no longer need to do that if they've already got their resume. Those little Post-it notes come right off, and now they won't even be mentally bothered by that anymore. They'll be able to focus on the things that are left. And here's another idea, the idea of a calendar. And I have to admit, calendars are a little challenge for me. I have a calendar on my wall, and I use the Post-it notes, and I am notorious as somewhat of a procrastinator for moving Post-it notes. I have some Post-it notes that have made it through an entire month without ever getting done. So just a little word of warning there. But the DAS just stands for daily action steps. So if there's something that I want to do, if there's an action I want to take, you know, I'll write it on the little Post-it note and just stick it up there on the calendar. And then if I don't get it done that day, I can move it to the next day. Or if I look realistically and say, you know what, this just isn't going to get done till Friday, I can pull it off of Tuesday and I can move it over to Friday. And then it's kind of out of my mind and I'm able to go back and focus on the things that are currently there. As I said, the danger is you can end up moving that little Post-it note around, but then maybe at some point you question whether that's really an action step you need to do, or how could you motivate yourself to do it. So that's just, again, another way that I like to use Post-it notes, and it's another visual way of getting information. What I wanted to do now was give you some references, some places that you can go to learn more. If this is something you've enjoyed, I'd love to tell you that every single thing I presented was out of my brain and my brain alone, and I just brilliantly came up with it. I didn't. There are many, many resources, and I thought what I would do is share, 5 or so of the resources that I really like and have found to be helpful. This first one is called The Vision Board, and it's a book by Joyce Schwartz. There are numerous vision board books out there. There's one, there's like a vision board kit, which personally I didn't find very helpful, so I purposely didn't put it up here. But there's also, I think there's The Complete Idiot's Guide to Vision Board, which is a very good book. But I kind of like this one. It's a little artsy, and she has very pretty, it's nice paper, and it's just very attractive book. If you like books that are sort of visually appealing, this one is a very nice one, and I found it to be just interesting to read and kind of fun for creating vision boards. And then some of you may be familiar with this book. Lucia, I think it's Capacchione is how she pronounces her last name, has a very nice career system for using visual thinking and developing lots of creative ideas. And her book is good. She actually has a very nice website as well that you can go to, and she, I believe, offers, I don't know if it's certification, but she definitely offers training programs, so that if you really got into this and you wanted to take some training from her, I think she has some online information lessons as well, but I know she runs workshops and things as well. If you find her work interesting, you might want to actually attend one of her workshops. This is a book I stumbled on over Christmas, and I really like it a lot. It's called The Right Brain Business Plan, Jennifer Lee. She has a great website. I believe her website is called Artizen Coaching, which is spelled A-R-T-I-Z-E-N. So it's sort of a play on art and zen. Artizen Coaching. She offers a certificate program, I think, in this Right Brain Business Plan. If you get into this and you really enjoy it, and it would be something fun to do. I found this book really helpful. I'm teaching a class right now on entrepreneurship with some of our students, and many of our students just do business planning the normal way. You get an accounting book or you get a book on business planning and they spell it all out. Whereas Jennifer Lee has this really nice system for doing it graphically, visually, artistically, and she just has a lot of fun exercises and things to do. And what I like is she has a way of making it more interesting. For instance, one of her units in there is on money management. And of course, you know how most books treat money management. It's get out the Excel spreadsheet and start, doing your columns of information. She uses Post-it notes, and she calls it, I think she calls it managing the moolah. And she basically has 2 columns, in and out. And she has you, for this business that you're developing, do little Post-it notes of where's the money going to go out, what do I have to spend money on, and where's the money coming in from. And she has you use 2 different colored Post-it notes. So very creative, very interesting. And like I said, you go to her website, Artizen Coaching, and she has handouts and various things that you can download. She also runs webinars and does all kinds of interesting stuff. Another book is Dan Rome's Back of the Napkin. This is kind of a classic book in the field. It's one of the first books that really took the visual thinking and made it very popular and made it kind of catchy and everything. So this is a nice book, and he just talks about basic, easy problem-solving methods and ways to write things, as he says, on the back of a napkin. He talks about various businesses that started that way. And then this is the final book that I want to recommend by David Sibbett, S-I-B-B-E-T. It's a little hard to see his name. It's in the right-hand corner with the yellow Post-it note. visual meetings, and it's all about using graphics and idea mapping and sticky notes, as he calls them, to create interesting meetings and to make meetings less dull and more interesting when you're trying to brainstorm. He has lots of interesting ideas in there, and even though he calls it visual meetings, I have really found his ideas helpful for workshops and programs too. I don't think it's just for meetings. So that's another resource that I hope you will find really helpful. And so what I thought I'd do now is it's really kind of your turn. And so I have a final exam for you, and I'll let Rita be in charge of the final exam. But basically, the final exam is a shape that I haven't talked much about, and that's triangles. I left them out purposely because I thought it is your turn. And so what I'm hoping y'all will do is start thinking about the shape of a triangle and how you might come up with something creative to do with that triangle. And I purposely have put 3 different ways, and these are all word art again, so you know your smart art program that's in your word processor. But just to get you thinking a little bit, you want to look at this shape and you want to think about what does it remind me of. And you know, if you look at the shape of a triangle, you might be thinking a mountain, you might think pyramid. It could be a pointer, depending on, you know, if you turned it on its side, it could point one direction or another. You could also look at it and think, well, there's 3 sides to it. What has 3 sides to an issue that might be worth bringing in? You could see it as a funnel. You could also see it as starting with a lot of information at the top and then narrowing down by the end. Or you could see it starting narrow at the top and expanding and expanding. So for instance, let me just give you one idea. That diagram to the right that has the 3 different layers of blue coloring, one of the things that hit me was, well, if I were going to use that, I think what I might do is if I was talking to a student about their career options based on their major, because you know how students always want to know what to do with that major, you could use the top one to fill in sort of common sense or typical careers. So if I'm an English major, I might put, you know, publishing or writing or editing. That might be the first level of thinking. Then the next middle one could be to start to expand that thinking. And maybe it expands by the type of places where I would do that writing. Or maybe I would start to look at ideas for writing that goes on within other job titles. And then the third layer at the bottom is kind of everything. So it could start to be, well, here are all the different careers that people with that major have done. You know, maybe it's politics and speech writing, you know, but it goes into just a much broader way of looking at careers. So that, you know, that's the hint that I will give you. But I'm going to let Rita handle that later in the Ning program or whatever, and maybe we can get some interesting. I'm just curious to see what ideas people have. So it is about 40 minutes, which is what we're trying to keep this at. So I very much want to thank you all for attending, and particularly those of you who've hung in here for 4 weeks. You get the gold star, absolutely. And I really do hope that you consider this just the beginning and that you keep exploring this, try stuff out, use it with students. Like I said, you just don't know when it's going to work and when it's not going to work. And believe me, I've had my share of failures. And so you just don't worry about that. If it starts to not work and you do the drawing and the student kind of looks at you like you got 4 heads, just say, well, this one isn't working. Let's just talk. And you know, you just don't worry about it. You try stuff out, and because the truth is, when it does work, it's almost magical sometimes, and the students are so thrilled and so grateful that it's made sense. I've had students write me back and say, you know that SWOT design you taught me, I have used that a dozen times this semester, and they start telling me all the different, I mean, they're very creative. They start telling me all the places they've used it that I would never have thought of. So I'm going to go back and leave the slide. I don't know if the slides will change when Rita starts talking. They probably will. But I'm just going to leave that up for you to keep thinking about while we do our questions and answers and all of that. So Kate, I'm turning it back to you, and let's see what's going on.
Well, thanks, Kate, for, again, another wonderful presentation. So much fun stuff. And thanks for the challenge with the triangles. I have a couple of questions popping up. The first one says, Kate, if you were to pick one of the books that you mentioned, which one would you start with? Thanks so much for such a great series of webinars. I plan to listen to them again to get additional ideas I missed. So which book would you start with?
Well, that person really gets a gold star, whoever they are. Let me flip back through them here really quickly. You know, I'll tell you what, it depends on what you need. If you're doing mostly career-related things and you want things that definitely help them specifically on career, then Visioning is probably the book I would start with, because that's all about life and career planning. That one's really good. On the other hand, if you work with students who are going to be entrepreneurs, or you're doing anything to do with business development or helping them with that, the Right Brain Business Plan is where I would start. And then the other thing is, just for general workshops and things, I'd get Visual Meetings. So it really depends. The other ones are nice ones, and they're kind of specialized, though. That vision board one is great if you think you're going to be doing vision boards, but if you don't see yourself doing that, you probably don't need that one. Back of the napkin's just kind of nice, but you know, you can get back of the napkin for sure at your library. So probably no need to buy it. These other ones may or may not be at your library, so you'll just kind of need to check on that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And then the next question says, I really have enjoyed this series of webinars. Thanks a million, Kate Brooks. The topics are helping me think outside the box.
Cool.
All right. So do we have other?
That's what we're trying to do.
Yes, exactly. Do we have other questions out there, folks? I'm not seeing any more coming in, so I think we're going to go ahead and bring Rita into the conversation. Oh, somebody just said triangles, when arranged, can become a hexagram, bringing ideas together into a form that could be a goal.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
We have brilliant people. I knew this. I knew we had geniuses out there. We're just trying to get them to speak up.
There you go. Exactly. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Rita. Rita, do you have some more comments for us?
Yes, I do. Let me bring up my screen into my next one. I wanted to tell everyone, again, thank you, Kate. That was awesome, and we'll figure out something creative to do with those triangles and let you know what we come up with. But all of you that are on the call are going to have an opportunity to fill in a short evaluation at the end of this session. It should arrive in your email right afterwards, or just come up on the screen. I'm not sure where it's going to be, but you'll get it shortly. So if you have other topics or concerns that you would like for us to address, make sure you write those in. This is how, I mean, we really want to give you what it is that you need and want. So, you know, really give that some thought. It's a simple 3-question survey that you're going to be asked to complete. So if you'll take a minute and do that, I would really appreciate it. So let me close by mentioning just a couple of other, make sure you realize our other great resources. The Career Cafe, I know most of you are familiar with. That's our site for students. But a new one that's just been renovated, it actually is a combination of several of our older sites, is the cacareerbriefs.com. And that one, you're going to hear more about it at the regional workshops, but everything that you need as a professional, including a link to get to the Ning, which we referred to frequently, our social networking kind of communication site, will be there on Career Briefs. The QTs are housed there. The big ideas that the career professionals get are housed there. The Career Development Advisory Committee, and you know how Kate Alder has been telling you that you can go to that area within Career Briefs to find the archives for these sessions. So you'll be hearing more about that, but you're definitely going to want to visit that site. Now the Ning has become a real important communication resource for us and a network for us. And I will be sending out more about events coming up, about best practices, about new ideas, about training that you might want to take advantage of. It's your opportunity to communicate with people in your region, which is what we really like, because as I work across the whole state, we find regions really do have unique concerns that they want to talk to each other about. So that's the place where you do that. But one last thing that I really want to tell you about that I feel is really important is we're going to be posting some research pretty soon, and I want to thank Julie Preston Smith at Fresno City College. She's on our advisory team and has pulled a lot of the research that's already been done together, and we're trying to make it easier for those of us in the field to be able to access that. But I think the most important piece is that we want to make sure that you know that the time that you have spent with us during this 4 weeks and all of the other efforts that you put out to increase your knowledge and gain skills, because serving students in this career area is really well worth the effort. Let me mention, I think those top two, which one is helping, as professionals, when we help students choose and complete a well-defined and structured program, it's going to increase the number of students earning college credentials, and obviously has an impact on the workforce. And the second part of that is the completion rate of students who entered a program of study in the first year was nearly twice as high as for students who entered at any later point. And I know you've been hearing, as I've been hearing, about the Student Success Task Force. There's a lot going on around that, and you'll be hearing even more about it. But these kind of statistics can really show that we can help students complete their credentials and have the kind of success that we need to continue our funding and to do the good work that we're doing. So that research is there. It's going to be posted on the NING. I'll be sending you a link to that. But I want you to look at number 4 too. Students who take a college career course execute fewer course withdrawals and take fewer courses in order to graduate. Now, that's a Florida State University research. But these are all really important things that we need to be able to know and to use to our advantage to let people know that the work that we're doing really does matter. And I want to applaud all of you that have taken the time from your busy schedules to really get better and get, to me, it's really getting re-inspired, you know, because each time I hear Kate speak, I go, oh yeah, I remember that. Now that's a cool idea, and think of a different way to use it. So I think all of us have really gained a lot from that. So I want to thank all of you for being with us. It's been a total pleasure to offer this, and keep an eye out for what we'll have coming to you in the future. So thank you to Kate Brooks, thanks to Kate Alder, and thanks to all of you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you. Bye.